Hello and welcome to Crafting with Madam K. So today we're going to try something that I've been wanting to try, which is a form of wet molding to make a mask using a already created mask. So I have this hard plastic cat mask that I'm going to use as my form. I'm going to use some thin leather. This is about 3 to 4 ounce leather, roughly between 1.5 to 2 millimeters thick. I think the thinner leather is going to work better, but I think we can probably do it with the thicker leather too. It's just the thinner the leather is, the better we're going to be able to get into all the cracks and crevices of the form. And then in order to form it, I'm actually going to use the vacuum seal trick. So I have one of these vacuum seal bags. So once we wet the leather and we put it around the mask, I'm going to put it in here and vacuum seal it really tight. And in theory, what that's going to do is it's going to pull the leather really tightly into all the cracks and crevices of the mask. Let that dry. It's probably, because it's vacuum packed, going to take a long time to dry. I may even have to let it air dry after it sits overnight, so we'll run a follow-up and see what happens with this test. But let that dry, and then in theory that should be nice and hardened around the mask, and then we can trim it up and design it however we want. Once I determine whether or not this works, I might test out doing some sort of designs on the leather first and then molding it. That way we have some carvings and engravings, but I'm always worried that I'm going to lose any of that beveling in the molding process, so I don't want to do too much before we try it. So I have a dish of water. We're going to get this leather nice and wet here, so let's go ahead and just put the whole thing in the water. I cut the piece out to what looked like to be just plenty big around the mask, so we'll have plenty of excess that we'll have to trim off later. So that'll be a little experiment on its own. And I'm just going to soak this leather, so just hold it under until the bubbles stop. So, you know. And then, okay, so it is nice and soaked through. There's no more bubbles coming out. It's nice and dark. I know sometimes people do let a lot more of the liquid come out before they mold it. I'm actually gonna go ahead and just test it out with it being very, very wet and see what happens here. So let's go ahead and just get this water out of the way. And yeah, like I said, it's very big for the mask, so there should be plenty of room to work around. I'm just gonna try putting it in the bag like this, not even shaping it, just put it in the bag and just see how well the vacuum seal works. Because my first thought would be that I should try my best to mold it around the mask and then let the bag do the rest of the process, but let's just toss it in the bag and see what happens, because if we can eliminate some steps, that'll make things a lot easier. Okay, sure, why not? Let's see what happens. So if you've never used these vacuum seal bags, they have these cool little zipper on there to help it zip up nice and tight with both seals. Okay, perfect. We got a nice tight seal there. And we're going to use the vacuum. And they're really easy. You just take the vacuum hose, put it right over the opening, and just zip it down. Okay, so far what we have here is it vacuum sealed pretty well, but I feel like we're not going to have a lot of these indents the way we want them. From the back it looks pretty tight. Another trick that may have worked too is maybe trying to cut the shape a little better or closer, because I can see where there's some folds and things forming. Okay, so we definitely have some air pockets we can still get out of there. I think we have a pretty good shape here. It looks like it's going to at least give us the shape of the mask, but I think I am going to have some do some work here to it when it's done. But let's go ahead and let that dry overnight and see what happens. So I ran into a couple hiccups. One, the vacuum seal bag that I was using had a hole in it, so mistake number one, make sure you have good quality materials. I did put it into a Ziploc bag and air tighten that, so that worked pretty well, but in the end, it really did not pull the leather as tightly around the mask as I thought it was going to. So what I did was I ended up re-wetting it and using the inside of the mask instead, and using some molding tools, put the mask into the shape, and using the molding tools just gently worked the leather down into all the cracks and crevices of the mask. And then I also trimmed up really nicely around the edges to make it the right shape, and let that dry on the mask overnight. Actually, at first what I did was I used a blow dryer to really like quick dry it. What I found is that will harden the leather a little bit more because it's applying the heat and it's fast evaporation, which is pulling that moisture out of the leather. So it really dries it out, which to get a hard mask is a good technique to use. If you're trying to make something that's pliable, never do that, because then you're gonna have, you know, a stiff piece of leather, which is almost nearly impossible to condition enough to soften up. So when I did that, I actually got a really cool shape to it. And again, it's a nice hard piece of leather. I had said that I thought I was using 2 to 3 ounce leather, but I think it was actually more of 4 ounce leather. I think if I was to use 1 to 2 ounce leather, the vacuum seal would have worked a little better, because it would have been a lot more pliable and able to be molded. But using the modeling tools, like just a thick ball tip on that, I was able to push the mask down into the nose pieces and really get the curves around the face. I haven't decided yet if I'm actually going to cut the eyes out to make it a mask, or if I'm going to just paint it and dye it and design it as is to just have a cool little, I don't know, something to put on the wall. I'm not sure what to do with it. That's the problem with all these experiments, is when it actually turns out cool, then I want to make something real out of it, and I didn't actually have a plan in mind. So I might cut out the eyes and still make it a mask. But hey, if you have any ideas, or if you like this, or you try something yourself and you have any feedback, definitely let me know. Comment on this video, and remember, it may not be the right way, but it is the Madam K way. Thanks for watching my video, and subscribe to my channel. Thanks.